Coming up on Unscripted Faith, born into crisis, fighting for survival, and defying the odds. Co-authors Scott Brown and Dr. Dawn Hennessey share their incredible true story of a child exposed to addiction and trauma, his struggles, triumphs, and the urgent message for families and communities everywhere. If you care about children and believe in the power of hope, you will definitely need to hear this.
Plus, are we measuring life the wrong way? Pastor Brian Henry from Hill City Church, Pittsburgh, challenges us to rethink what truly matters, how parents shape their children's faith, and the key to living with real purpose. Real stories, life-changing conversations, hope in action. Don't miss it. Unscripted Faith starts right now. Here we go.
Welcome. It is so great to be back here on the set,
yes,
in your house, on your iPad, wherever you're watching this from. Yes. Unscripted Faith is revved up and ready to go.
Yes, we are. We're going to be talking about family and success and how we're measuring life. These are going to be powerful conversations today.
It really is. I'm looking forward to it. And so today we're diving into a powerful and deeply moving conversation about the voices we don't always hear. Children exposed to drugs and trauma. We're joined by author Scott Brown and Dr. Dawn Hennessey, an advocate and founder of Faith Forward and Angel Arms, as they share a powerful story of a child's journey from trauma to hope. Scott and Dawn, welcome to Unscripted Faith.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Good to have you guys. And listen, very unique here because it's your story, but you co-authored and have a history. I think you've written 11 books, is it?
Correct.
11 books, so you've got a little bit of a repertoire of stuff that you've done. So I would do the same thing too if I'm writing a book. Get somebody that's already done it and got the t-shirt. But tell us how you guys worked together and how you guys came together.
So Scott actually wrote a book previous to this one. Well, there's been several books in between now, but it was on worldly substance use within Pennsylvania, and you could talk more about that. But he actually came to myself and my husband to interview us just because we work heavily with that population with our ministry. And so you could take it from there if you want.
Yeah, so I had really gotten interested in the opioid epidemic and just kind of went out into the field. So I focused a book on Western Pennsylvania with an emphasis on Westmoreland County. And I'm going to make a little confession here, and this is a God works in mysterious ways. So I had gone to a symposium, and they had about 6 or 7 different people that were speaking, and I was not going to call Dawn because I didn't quite understand. You were with Angel Arms talking about addiction to babies, and I ended up meeting her, and we just kind of hit it off right away. Then her husband Rick, I met him maybe a week later. It might have been the next day even.
Yeah, I think you called him the next day.
And he told me a story which is in his book, and the only teaser I will give to that is as he was telling his story, my chin, I had to like pick it up off of the table because it is so powerful from the depths where he was to where he is now.
Yeah.
And that just started us on a path of an incredible friendship. They're my family now, and
he sits on our board for our ministry now, so it's been really neat, this whole story, how we kind of got to this point.
And so my book, Hope and Heartbreak, it focuses on just all different aspects of the epidemic, again with an emphasis on Western PA. But there was something unfinished here, and that's what Saving Isaac is sort of a bit of a sequel to that, because there was there was an unfinished story to tell there.
Wow. Well, so tell us, because I want my jaw hitting this table.
Wait a minute, you're talking about a jaw drop. You can't leave us like that.
So tell us a little bit of that story.
So just again, it's a very long God story. It's something that we weren't looking for, but that's how God works, right? And so in our ministry, we work a lot with everything's kingdom-based, and it's a Bible-based human service program. Well, we had a mom and a birth mother and a father who live in abandoned houses on substances, heroin, cocktail of other things, walk into one of our centers, and in short, just wanted to use our phone, and she was actually getting ready to abort the baby that she had. And she went outside, and God just prompted me. It was very cold February, And he said, don't preach to her, just pray with her. And so I just went to her and I said, what can I do for you? Can I pray with you? And she cussed me up and down. And I said, that's okay. I don't get what you're going through, but I want to love you. And through that, she didn't end up aborting the baby, which is our Isaac now. And praise God for that. And so through this journey, I built a relationship with her, just wanting to help her. And in a very quick story, too much, it's in the book, but she basically 2 months before he was born said, will you take my baby until I get my life right? And you know, God calls us to go that extra mile sometimes, and sometimes we don't know what that extra mile is, and we're put in that. And I can remember saying, first I got to ask my husband. You know, that's a little thing. Yeah. Because I had five kids, and the other kids were kind of gone. My youngest was going to kindergarten, one was in college. I'm like, I'm free a little bit, you know, but you're like, okay, Lord. And I remember I got out of my office and walked across the hall to my coworker, and she said, what's wrong with you? And I said, I think I just had a baby. And I said, I'm not sure. But you know, that was a journey. Isaac was born very, very sick. He was born premature. He was an NAS baby, was abstinence syndrome. He had opioids in him. He almost died his first year.
What does that mean exactly?
So,
NAS, for people that may be listening, what exactly does that entail?
That means NAS is actually a symptom of having opioids within your body. But then there's over 40,000 children will be born just with opioids this year in our country alone. That's not counting crack, meth, methadone, which is also an opioid substance. And so what that means is the symptoms is that they go through withdrawal. They shake unbelievably. He was born about 3 pounds. He has long-term challenges, which is part of why a theory that I wrote in the book and some of those helps is because if we catch a lot of this stuff now, we can help them. They're just starting to label these kids. And then crack, methadone, some of these other substances have different challenges. So we need to identify these challenges. And just so if I could say real quick, something that's very passionate is these are our next generation. That's right. Yes. But God gives us that hope, right? Yes. That we could pray to break those generational curses. We have that ability. We have that power in Jesus Christ, that we have the authority to come over that and say no more in this family. I've had 4 generations of drug addiction in my office at one time counseling. We have the authority to say no more. And we have to do it. These kids are our future. Yes. These kids are our future. And so that's one of the reasons why, I'm sorry, I'm talking too much. This is my passion. This is my love. But you know, that's when Scott said, I want to write your story. And I said, well, I'll only say, okay, because that's humbling. To open up your life, right? Because he has more than just Isaac in there. He has some other stuff in there, my past a little bit. But I said, I want to be able to let me write the second half, even though I'm not a writer. Let me do that because I want to inspire someone to know there's hope and there's change and there's more that God can offer. Like our little Isaac, he just learned to read this past year. He's 11 now. We have adopted him now, and we have a relationship with the birth mother, but we have adopted him. But it's not only a story of what God can do in this little life that the devil was trying to say, no, you'll never amount to anything. First, he tried to kill him. Right? Then he tried to kill him again because he had so many opioids in his body that doctors didn't think he would live twice now. Wow. And God, said, no, I have a purpose for you, but that's now my part as the adopted mother and my husband's part and my entire family and people like Scott. It's like, we're going to help you become the best that you can be in Jesus Christ because you have a purpose.
Come on. So what typically happens to these NAS children, and how is the birth mother doing?
The birth mother's been on and off.
Okay.
I just got a text from her a few days ago, so I try to stay in contact with her. When she's clean, she can see him. When she's not, we have an understanding. Yes. But one thing that I did tell her when I said yes to taking the baby, my husband and I said, one, I can only love this baby like I would love my other children. You can't love a child halfway. Right? I'm not going to just be halfway called to something.
That's right.
We had no intention of adopting him at that point, but we said yes, whatever God. And that was the hardest thing I've ever gone through in my life because you're falling in love with something and know that it could be taken out from you at any moment. But I said at the same time, I said, and I don't want to say her name, but I said, you got to allow me to love you just as much as this child. And you got to allow me to speak into your life. And we've had our moments. But right now, you know, she's doing okay. She just actually got married, and she's doing pretty good. So.
Well, I've got a couple of questions here because this is really good. Did you come up with the name Isaac? Is that something you guys did because of a promised son?
No, let me tell you, that is such a funny story. So, you know, she did keep him. She did not abort him. Praise God for that. And so I shared that scripture, like God knows his name already. You know, God has his, you know, he knows, you know, all those scriptures about it. So several months later, she said, we named him already. And I said, well, what's his name? And she said it was Isaac Xavier. And I said, and she said, but you can change it. And I said, no, the Lord had already ordained that name on this little guy. And so, of course, when she left my house, I ran and looked up the name and see what it meant. And as you know, Isaac is laughter and joy, like, which is totally what he's brought to our family, right? And then another another meaning for Xavier, there's a few. One of them is a new home.
Wow.
And tell me that's Jesus.
Come
yeah.
on.
Isn't that awesome?
Now, dealing with Isaac here, how is he with his mom? Does he recognize, is it a hard thing for him with the transition of it all?
So we have been working with Isaac, and this is in the book, there's a section, there's some, in the back it talks to, like, there's different subjects, right? That you can have scriptures I have with, which Isaac actually helped me find the scriptures for, as well as the subjects. So there's something on the adoption area too. But his maturity level has to be to a certain point. So he understands certain things.
Okay.
So right now is mommy's friend. Right now is mommy's good friend. You know, he has seen her. So there, to me, I would tell every family, you have to go to God in that, and you have to take one step at a time, because we don't want to make more trauma in a child's life, who he's always known himself as being engrafted in our family. Nice. So that, but he will know his story. He will, because it's important to know your story.
Of course.
It is.
And if I could just say something real quick, is one thing I love about how much a part of Isaac is of the Hennesseys. It's one without the other. And people who meet them don't even know he's adopted. And I was fortunate enough to attend the official adoption. And when the judge told him he is now Isaac Xavier Hennessey, I think he turned, and I'm paraphrasing Isaac here, but I think he turned around and said, wait, I'm already a Hennessey.
He looked at his dad, he's like, what?
Yeah, he was like, wait, what do you mean? I'm already a Hennessey. What are you talking about, Judge?
Yes, I love that. I love that. This truly is, and I love that you said, Scott, that this is really kind of a sequel to your Hope and Heartbreak book, and how we're hearing all the hope that has arisen as a result, but it didn't come easily. And I thank you both for your work and your journey with these children and with abuse and with addiction. It is such a difficult work, but you are truly bringing so much of Jesus' hope to the world. Thank you. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Real quick, take about 10 seconds. Tell us about Angel's Arms real quick.
So Angel Arms is a program that we help the entire family, foster, birth parents or adoptive parents, with resources, counseling. We help with trauma, because there's usually trauma involved, but we all do it with Kingdom Eyes. So we have professional counseling, but we also, you know, we have to have Jesus in there.
Amen. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being with us. Coming up after the break, what really matters in life? Pastor Brian Henry of Hill City Church joins us to talk about the lasting influence of parents on our spiritual formation and why it's time to rethink how we measure success. Don't miss this powerful conversation. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for spiritual inspiration and intellectual stimulation in the same place? Do you need activities that reduce stress and boost your mental health? Look no further. This month, when you give your best gift of support to Cornerstone Television, we'll send you this large print Bible Word Search devotional as our thank you to you. These devotions, scriptures, and 100 word search puzzles will encourage your spirit and engage your mind in the many promises and blessings of God. Soak in the unchanging love and faithfulness of your Creator, beautifully captured in the book of Psalms. Ask for your copy of the large print Bible Word Search devotional when you give this month to support Christian television through Cornerstone Network. Give online at ctvn.org/donate or call us at 888-665-4483. Thank you for making us your home for Christian television.
Anna, did you hear? No, what?
Cornerstone Television hit 100,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel.
No way.
Yeah, and YouTube sent us this cool play button, silver play button.
Oh my gosh, look at that.
Yeah, there's so much content on Cornerstone's YouTube channel. People can watch the shows on the air or they can catch them later on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, that's right, at their own convenience. I was just watching Dashing Dish from last week.
Hitting 100,000, that is a great landmark. What do you think we should do to celebrate that?
Oh gosh. Oh, I know. We should dump 100,000 Orbeez over your head.
What? Orbeez?
Welcome back to Unscripted Faith. Joining us now is Pastor Brian Henry of Hill City Church, Pittsburgh, and a friend of mine, a dynamic communicator, passionate pastor, and devoted family man. With a heart for building community and inspiring spiritual growth, he's here to talk about the lasting influence of parents' faith and why we need to rethink how we measure what truly matters. Pastor Brian, welcome to Unscripted Faith.
So good to be here with you guys today.
We are so glad to have you, Brian. Would you take a few moments and share your God story and your upbringing of how you met Jesus?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I grew up here local in the area, in the Pittsburgh region, and I was blessed to grow up in a home with family that my parents were both pastors. So my mom and my dad both pastored a local church.
PK.
Yeah, a PK, let's hear it, right? And so all of the good things and all the challenges that come with that. And so, a lot of times sharing our faith story, you can hear that and think that, as a PK, as a pastor's kid, you can just automatically be on that right track. But there are a lot of great things that I learned being in church, seeing my parents lead. But honestly, for my faith journey, I would say that my faith story really begins with my parents and some other family members really modeling that for me, what that looked like, right? Seeing them, not just on stage and talking about Jesus, but modeling what grace looks like, off the stage, modeling what forgiveness looks like in a difficult situation. And so for me, that was really the formation of my faith. And I would say for a long time, and probably for a lot of people, this would be similar, just going through the motions, right?
Yeah,
And
yes.
we lived in the parsonage next to the church. Like I used to joke that, it was Sunday school, Sunday morning, Sunday night, and midweek on Wednesday, right? And we were there, and as the PKs, we're doing it all, right?
Yes.
It's like, they're like, Brian, how'd you learn to do these things? Well, someone needed to run the sound, there's little Brian up there, someone in the band, you're gonna learn this instrument, right? You gotta get up there and do that. So there's a lot of great exposure and a lot of things that were learned. But it was really the behind the scenes and really them modeling what that looked like for us and getting to see that up close and personal, and something that was pretty amazing in my parents' story that really affected me in my faith journey. Is they were pretty much first generation Christians, and my father actually led my grandmother to the Lord when he was a young man. He got saved in a home group and then got on fire for Jesus, and he led my grandmother to Jesus, and then come all these years later, she was someone who had a profound impact in my life. So I have a grandmother who loves Jesus, and what was really powerful about her story is she was someone who was sick for a very long time, had very limited mobility, couldn't really leave the home. But she was someone who, as I look at the heroes of faith in my life, she's someone who ranks right up there. And I love that because I think, heroes of faith, sometimes, it's just we see people who do great things for God's kingdom, and not to diminish their story, but sometimes our personal stories, those personal heroes of our faith, can be someone who may not at first glance be someone who would appear to be able to do that. But as I think about my faith story and my journey and why I'm here today talking about Jesus, she is someone who was absolutely instrumental in that. We used to joke, it was kind of funny growing up as a kid, I'd be sick, and I'm like, you got to get grandma on the phone, right? Like, Mom and Dad, I know you're pastors. Like, I know that you can pray for me, you need to do that. That's your job, but I need grandma. Like, put up the bat signal. I need grandma in here right now praying for me. Like, I needed to hear her. I needed to hear her voice on that phone praying for me, because I was like, well, grandma prays. Jesus is listening. That's what I needed. And so that's just, very profound impact, in a story, growing up in a faith family, ministry, but man, the people behind the scenes really contributed that to me, what that looked like, and getting serious in my faith later on in my teenage years.
When you say that about the people behind the scenes, but really they're in front. You know, I mean, because I think that is so important. The reason why I serve God today is because how my father modeled it. You talk about how much God can do in a generation. My dad grew up in a home. He never knew who his father was until he was 40. His one brother was a man that became a woman. His one sister was a girl that became a man. The other one had multiple. I mean, he came out of a poor, and to see in one generation what God can do. But what changed me was how my father modeled. And that's what I'm hearing you say. And so my prayer is, and I want you to speak to this, how important is it for us to model in our homes, not hear it on Sunday, not hear it on Wednesday. They got to see that thing in operation throughout the week.
Right, and I think that really was the message. There wasn't a duality. It wasn't, I was seeing one thing, up front in front of people, and not that I would put a cape on them and call them superheroes. They'd be the first to admit that they, are fault. They have error, but that they lived a life that was true, and they did their best to point us towards Jesus with their life, with their actions, how they interacted with people, how they spoke about people behind closed doors. There was never moments where it was like there was, stage persona, mom and dad pastor, and then home persona. They just were who they were, right? And people recognize that, and we as children, our kids know. Our kids know, right? They know us more than anything. And so I'm thankful for that they modeled that, and I had those opportunities to see that in parents who, served Jesus, did that vocationally, but served us at home and raised us to love and know Jesus.
I love that you bring that to the surface too, Brian, and because it's so important, I think, with life in general. Whether you're a businessman or you're a pastor or whatever you're doing, that true success isn't the amount of money that you make. It's not about making a name for yourself out there. But really, it's about being inward focused around that. Speak to us a little bit more about that and how we should shift our perspective on what success really looks like.
Yeah, something that we've talked about quite a bit in recent years is really changing the scorecard. Right. What is success? What are we really measuring this by? And for me, in a ministry context, it can be one thing, but it can look like this for so many different people, whatever context they're in. It can look like, for as a pastor, what's the size of the church? How many people are coming? How big's the budget? All of these things. And not that there's anything inherently wrong with that scorecard, but at the end of the day, if that's where I hang my hat and say this is ultimately what matters most, and for us, our church and our pastors, I love Pastor Zach says, what does the scorecard look like for us if, when we're done with all of this and someday we hang up our hats in ministry, that our kids all love Jesus? What does that scorecard look like, and how do our actions then come behind that to line that up? And so really just this idea, and you can put it in those ideas for ministry, but really with anything, it's chasing success in business or, with things or stuff, and not that there's anything inherently wrong with having goals or achieving things, but at the end of the day, when I'm done, and my time here on earth is over, what was the most important thing? And something I've recognized because of the example that my parents led. Yet, yes, they did ministry to their fullest. Yes, they did some amazing and awesome things in building God's kingdom. But their investment into me, into my siblings, that scorecard was the most important. And that's something that I long to, now with my wife, Christy. We've been married for over 20 years. We've had 5 daughters together.
5 daughters?
Yes.
You have no boys?
No boys, no.
God bless you.
No, we had a dog, and it was a girl too, so just completely outnumbered. Yeah, and so that's a whole nother scorecard.
Exactly.
But just that whole idea of what matters. Like, we can say we know what matters, right?
Yes.
Like, in our heart, we would say, our family, our children, our spouse. If the scorecard's really about what are you keeping score, then how does your action line up behind that?
Yes.
What am I doing? Where really are the priorities? What am I spending my time? Help with that.
Well, it's funny you mention that because we're all pastors. And one of the scripture I tell people all the time when I'm speaking to younger ministers and things like that, one of the scariest scriptures in the Bible, in my opinion, is he said, many will come to me in that day and say, didn't we cast out devils?
Come on.
Didn't we do all these wonderful things for you? He said, depart from me, I never knew you. And I tell people this, God is the only God that will hire you, then fire you, but let you keep working.
That's right.
And I said, that's a scary. So I say, Lord, please don't fire me. I'm saying that to say, I have my own set, but in your life, what are the scorecards that mean, or what is the scorecard? What are the things on that card that mean the most to you?
Right. I think the scorecard for me is recognizing, like, at the end of the day, you know, being in ministry, whatever it is, I want to be famous in my own home, right? And so with my wife and my children, like that's where my priority is going to be. And so just simply, even in time management, it's just simple as, you know, where is the lion's share of my time? Yeah, I have a vocation. Yeah, I have to provide. I have to do these things. But is the score just simply how hard I can lean into those things and achieve? Or is my scorecard being, I have to do this for my family? So just making simple decisions. Sometimes a scorecard is just as simple as that. You know, choosing to not be out every night of the week doing something great for God's kingdom, or just simply, you know, just showing up to making sure that my children's events are a priority and that I have time for them and I can be there. You know, I think that's how you could just really take it down, you know, a simple way is just even simple time management. That shows what the scorecard is, you know, that we're really willing to invest our time in making decisions to show up and be there and making our family and our children a priority.
That's good.
I love that. And listen, his wife, okay, not only are they teaching the bread of life at home and getting it into their kids, she makes this fresh bread. I mean, makes it. And it's,
really?
It is so good.
Sourdough,
Bakery by Christy, or I don't know what she's calling it, but it's delicious sourdough bread. Brian, thank you so much for being with us. And really, thank you for being such an example, you and Christy, in raising your daughters, making Jesus famous to them through your living. Thank you so much for being that example to us, and thank you for being with us on Unscripted Faith.
Absolutely, thank you.
Oh,
bless you, man.
Love it. Now, before we go to break, today's guests have shared powerful insights on faith, family, and fighting for what truly matters. From advocating for vulnerable children to redefining success in our spiritual lives, these conversations challenge us to make a difference. What's your next step? Stay with us. Final thoughts after the break.
Welcome to Dashing Dish. This is going to be a show to go down in history. In this corner, we have my husband, Sean, whose specialty is cereal and pizza. And in this corner, we have my brother-in-law, Brett, whose specialty is anything meat. And today, we're going to bring them together in the kitchen, and they're going to each be taking turns making a Dashing Dish recipe entirely on their own.
Make Cornerstone Network your home for the best in local Christian TV, bringing you programs like
You're going to find freedom. You're going to find healing. You're going to find a clear conscience. You're going to find ways that you're hearing God in the ways you've never heard him before. You hang in there. He's a God who never, ever lets us go, ever.
We left the light on for you. Cornerstone Network is your home for Christian television. Welcome home.
Before we left, we asked, what's your next step? But I want to ask you, what's your scorecard?
Yeah. Scorecard to me is like what Pastor Brian said, looking like what I profess. If I profess that we got to live in gratitude, am I living in gratitude?
Yeah.
You know, and always pointing my babies back to Jesus. That is my number one goal on my scorecard. How about you, Pastor Jay?
You know, my greatest compliment, I tell people this all the time, people in the church, can I just be real, y'all? People in the church can be flaky. They'll be with you 1 minute, they'll be gone the next. I'm just being real with you.
It's very true.
I'm just being real.
Very true.
But the reality is, so people say, oh, you're the best pastor. You can't nobody preach like Pastor Jay. Oh, you this, that, and the third. I said, you'll be gone next week. When my wife keeps calling me Superman,
well,
that's what is a good scorecard to me.
That's
When
the
she
truth.
brags
That's the
on me and says who he is in the pulpit is who he is at home, that's what means the most to me.
Yes, that's living with integrity, right? That's living in purpose. That's living with true success under your belt.
Yeah, and I know I might get in trouble for calling people, church folks, flaky, but it's the truth. And people are flaky everywhere, whether it's in the media or wherever it is. But the reality is you got to be true to who you are. Yeah. Integrity is who you are in public, is who you are in private. Don't be a public success and a private failure. Be a success in everywhere of your life.
Cornerstone Television wishes to thank all our faithful viewers whose consistent prayers and financial support have made this program possible.